This is the video for 1-2 order of operations. A power has two parts, the base and the exponent. So if I say 2 to the third power, the 3 is the exponent and the 2 is the base. The exponent tells you how many times to use the base as a factor, and the base is what you are using as the factor. So 2 to the third power is the same thing as saying 2 times 2 times 2. And there's a difference between the term simplify and the term evaluate. We simplify numerical expressions and we evaluate algebraic expressions. So in a numerical expression, when we simplify, we replace the expression with a single numerical value. So if I take the numerical expression 5 minus 1, I can replace that with the single numerical value 4. When we evaluate an algebraic expression, we replace the variable with a given number. So if I say evaluate the algebraic expression x minus 1 when x equals 7, I'm replacing the variable with the number 7, and that will give me 7 minus 1, which I can then simplify and say 6. So let's go over example number 1. And we're going to start by simplifying powers. There's nothing new in this lesson. The entire chapter is actually a pre-algebra review. But just to review, if I say 10 to the 7th power, what I'm saying is I'm multiplying 10 by itself 7 times. So when I do that, that will give me a 1 with 7 zeros. And if I say 0.2 to the 5th power, that is saying that says I'm taking 0.2 and I'm multiplying it by itself 5 times. So you can use your calculator. So that's going to be 0.2 to the 5th power. I took 0.2 and I multiplied it by itself 5 times. So go ahead and hit pause and work out the on your owns, and on this last one, do not use a calculator. So here are the answers, and notice on this last one, 2/3 2/3 taken to the third power is the same thing as saying 2/3 times 2/3 times 2/3, which is the same thing as 8/27. So the reason why I said don't use a calculator on this is what I don't want you to do is say 2 divided by 3 and then take that to the third power. Do not take your calculator and take fractions and convert them into decimals. If the problem gives you a fraction, you have to have a fraction as an answer. You have to be comfortable with fractions. Okay, so now let's look at example number 2. We're going to start our order of operations. And remember the rules for order of operations. Grouping symbols, exponents, multiplication and division left to right, and then addition and subtraction left to right. It's called GEMDAS. Grouping symbols, exponents, multiplication and division left to right, and then addition and subtraction left to right. So on our first example, I'm going to start with the grouping symbol. The grouping symbol here is a parenthesis, so I'm going to start with 6 minus 2, which is going to be 4. Then I can go ahead and move to the exponent. 4 to the third power is 64. Then I can go ahead and divide. On the next example, my grouping symbol is a division bar. So that means I need to go ahead and solve the entire top first before I divide this problem out. So I have 2 to the 4th power, which is 16. Again, I have to finish simplifying my top before I can divide it out. And so then the answer is 3, because this division bar acts as a grouping symbol, and this is a group. So go ahead and work out these on your own problems. So hit pause. Here are your answers, 27, 7, and 17. So I want to call your attention to this -4 squared. Let's look at that real fast. Where did I start in this problem? I started with, well, I would start with grouping symbols, but there are no grouping symbols, so I'm going to move straight to exponents. And so with -4 squared, that's -16. That's different than this. Because with -4 squared, when there are no parentheses, this exponent only goes to the 4. It doesn't go to the negative. So that would end up being -16. But here, this exponent goes to the entire thing. So that exponent goes to the negative and the 4. So it ends up being +16. I want to make sure that you fully understand the difference between those two. And that's why here, that -4 squared ended up being -16. And so I dealt with that first, and then I had to do my multiplication and division left to right, which meant I had to start with a 5 times 7, which is 35, and then I moved on to the -16 divided by 2, which was -8. Then and only then could I finish off with my subtraction, 35 minus 8. If you got that wrong, or if you got any one of these wrong, make sure you fully understand what you did wrong, pause the video, and then rework the problem. Okay, and finally the last example, evaluating algebraic expressions. I'm going to go ahead and plug in the value for my variable, and then I'm going to go ahead and solve. So here, x is 5, and y is 2. And now I'm going to go ahead and simplify. So I have no grouping symbols, so I'm going to start with my exponents. And then I go ahead and move on to multiplication and division. So that means I need to solve -12 divided by 4 first. And then and only then can I move on to the addition and subtraction, going left to right. And this last example, remember when you have two variables or a number in a variable that are connected to each other without a multiplication symbol in between them, that means they are to be treated as a single number. They are to be treated as if they are grouped together. So when it comes to order of operations, this is actually different than this. So whenever you have two variables next to each other without this multiplication symbol in between them, they are to be treated as if they are grouped together. So go ahead and group them together and think of them as one group when you're going through your order of operations. So now I'm going to plug in the values for my variables, paying attention to my groupings. And you can see how if you didn't group them together, because of order of operations, you would get a completely different answer. Now I'm going to simplify inside my groups first. Then I'm going to deal with my exponents and then my division. So go ahead and pause the video and work out these on your own, and remember to go ahead and group together anything that is connected through multiplication but doesn't have that multiplication symbol in between them. They're to be treated as one group. So go ahead and start by just putting your parentheses around them. You're to treat them as if they're in a group, grouped together with a grouping symbol. Here are your answers, 3 and 11. And notice on this last one here, this exponent of 2 only goes to the b. It doesn't go to this coefficient of 2. This exponent 2 only goes to the b. The exponent of 2 only goes to the b. It doesn't go to this 2. So this exponent here of 2 only goes to the 4. It doesn't go to this 2. So it becomes 2 times 16. Okay, go ahead and start your homework and let me know if you have any questions.